Recently, I've received a few questions via email and Twitter about running tryouts for the spring, whether for AAU teams or provincial teams or different teams depending on who's emailing. So I just wanted to give a couple thoughts that I have on tryouts. First, with youth teams, I don't think there should be a tryout. If you are going to say that you're a developmental program, to me that means engaging or incorporating as many players as possible, not deciding which 10-year-olds I want to keep on my team. So that's my first thought. Developmental program, if that's what you're saying that you're doing, that you're there to develop players and prepare players for high school and college and so forth. The goal should be to keep as many players as possible, not to trim the numbers. I know that's not always possible, and sometimes numbers, gym space, etc., kind of dictate how many players you're able to keep. But I know even when I coached AAU back years ago, and we took a team to nationals, all throughout the spring we continued to add players and add players and add players. And so by the time we went for nationals, I think we probably had about 18 players on our team. Couldn't take all 18, so we only took 10 or 11, and we took the first 10 or 11 that had signed up. So anyway, I know it's difficult, it's hard, but I think if you're going to commit to being a developmental program, then the goal should be to keep as many players in the program as possible. Now, for the actual tryouts, when you do have a team that you need to determine, whether it's creating an A team and a B team, or provincial team, or whatever the case may be, play games. I think ultimately we're preparing players and teaching players and developing players to play 5-on-5 basketball. So that's what I would spend a lot of my tryout doing, is playing 5-on-5. Second, I also like to play small-sided games because sometimes I think players can get lost in 5-on-5. So playing 3-on-3 games or 2-on-2 full court, different things like this, might enable a player to catch your eye who you may not have seen in a 5-on-5 game. Typically, these are going to be your less aggressive players. So in 5-on-5 games, your more aggressive players or more aggressive personalities are going to tend to stand out. 3-on-3, 2-on-2, etc., can sometimes give the less aggressive players who may have the skills and just need to kind of be given a little bit more confidence, might give them more of a chance to show what they can do. I also, I do it every practice, so I would do it at tryouts as well, is a dynamic warm-up. I do that because, one of the things, again, I'm trying to teach movement skills, but I'm also able to look at players and kind of evaluate their movement skills. So who do I think is going to have a little bit more potential based on how they move, versus who's going to need a lot of work because they're not as coordinated, or maybe their skill level isn't what it should be, or what I would like it to be, because they're not as coordinated. Then that asks another question. So, what age group is this? Is this player maybe going through a growth spurt, and that's why, their coordination isn't exactly, kind of where it should be for their age, but maybe they're, either maturing early or maturing late, and the growth spurt is changing their coordination patterns more at this exact time than it is some of the other players who have already either adapted to a growth spurt or haven't had that growth spurt yet. So, everything matters, and everything, it's very complex when picking teams, and there's a lot of things that go into it. But ultimately, we're picking players who are going to perform well in games, not players who look good in drills. The last thing that I would suggest, if you want a fair tryout, is to have multiple selectors, and have the multiple selectors rate the players individually without conferring with the other selectors. So let's say we have 30 players trying out. We're only going to pick 15 players. We have 3 selectors. So we have, whatever, our one day of tryouts, our week of tryouts, whatever. At the end, I write down my list. You write down your list. The next coach writes down his or her list. And then we compare the lists. I think oftentimes when you talk verbally about players, the senior coach or the first person to talk can influence other people. So I say I like this player, and maybe my assistant then immediately agrees with me, because I said it. Whereas If we had made the list independently, maybe I had a player on the list that didn't make the other two lists. Well, maybe I'm right, maybe they're right, but at least now we're starting a discussion over those, as opposed to if I had said, I like this player, and they just said, oh yeah, I do, and they just agree with me, and now there's no discussion. We've all decided we like this player that maybe they didn't really think was as good as some of the other players, and so maybe consequently we miss a player that if everybody had created their own list might have been noticed by one or more of the coaches, and we could at least have a discussion and see whether or not that player deserves to be on the team. So again, those are my takes on tryouts. One, if you're a developmental team, try not to have tryouts. Try to keep everybody. Two, if you are having tryouts, if you are selecting teams, to me, games is the best way to see who belongs there. Mix up the games, 5-on-5, 3-on-3, 2-on-2. Put some rules there. Try to get them playing faster. Try to get them out of their comfort zone. And then 3, use multiple selectors that rate players independently, and then come together as a group to discuss the players based on their previous rankings.